Get 50% off the first 3 months until 30th of May 2022. Buy now at thebara.co.uk. Terms apply.
Want a better broadband deal? Right now, TalkTalk have even faster speeds at the same great value. Get a super fast speed boost at no extra cost. Average speeds of 67 megabits per second for the same price as 38. Just £23.50 a month for 24 months. A super fast speed boost at no extra cost. Deals that make sense. Search TalkTalk Fibre. TalkTalk for everyone. Offer ends 25th May. CPI plus 3.7% annual increase from April 2023. Subject to availability. £9.95 post and packing. T's and C's apply. What if positive change was only one design away? With Canva, you can design anything. Whether it's a presentation to share an idea, a video to launch a business, or a social post to start a conversation. Millions of people are using Canva to redesign their own world. Some say design is beyond most people's reach. We say it's already in your hands. So, what will you design today? Start designing for free at canva.com.
David Lammy on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Taking your calls on the police's plan this week to deal with racism in the force. I'm trying to remain optimistic despite 50 years this year on which this issue has dogged our country. Please call me on 0345 6060 973, whatever your perspective. Johnny in Shooters Hill. Johnny.
Hello there.
Hi, Johnny.
Yeah, I was just talking to your producer, Cressida Dick, how she stayed in power that long, I just don't know. There was a woman there who turned up for money.
In 300 yards at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit onto the Parkway, A312.
On rare occasions they get caught doing stuff there, kind of, showing the door, and it's all hushed up. Often they go and join another police force. But some of the stuff that's been in the news recently is just totally disgusting. We had a serving, just a couple of months ago, we had a serving Metropolitan Police firearms officer when he was meant to be at work, went to a hotel in Basingstoke to meet a 13-year-old girl. Thank God it was a sting. That's you can Google that. But there's just
Quite tough on Cressida Dick just then, Johnny.
Well, I don't think it was tough enough. That woman, if she had any dignity, she would have resigned years ago. She wasn't capable of doing a job. Being a commander, the head of the Metropolitan Police is not. It takes really certain particular kind of strengths, and she didn't have them.
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway.
Just a couple of months ago, illusion.
Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile.
Guilty. If I had a police officer as a London capital, I would lose my job. I'd never drive a taxi again. I'd go to prison. He's got a suspended sentence.
Johnny, I just want to be careful because you are making quite a few claims here.
Yeah, well,
I can't corroborate on the air, and but I think we've got your point that basically, and we certainly discussed this on the show, there have been many issues, many of them documented, of corruption, and a sense that there's been a failure at the top of the net to deal with it. Thank you very much for calling in. Ayo in Wallington. Ayo.
Hello, David. Thanks for taking my call.
Not at all.
I think over the years, progress has been made in fighting racism in the force. But it's still a significant problem, and it's heartbreaking. There are many cases that you mentioned, and I take the case of Bianca Williams to illustrate the position. Now, this lady and her partner were obviously subject to a racist, such harassment and abuse of power by the police, which happens. But what aggravated the situation is this for me. Cressida Dick, the Met Commissioner then, and Stephen House, her assistant, or the deputy, her number 2, they looked at the video of the whole thing and they said, oh, nothing was done wrong. And that broke my heart because a few weeks ago, they revealed these findings and said, actually, everything was done wrong. The lady was
There is this, I have experienced this.
In a quarter of a mile, at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport, M25.
And then you find out months later when you get the official, the official version, and we did into Bianca Williams. I'm afraid this was terrible. and they said that she was speeding down the road. She wasn't speeding down the road. She should never have been stopped. That's what was established. You're absolutely quite right. It was heartbreaking. Young athlete.
Do you know what's further heartbreaking is their little child was placed on an at-risk register, and she's still on the register, right? And that hasn't been corrected.
That I didn't know. That I didn't know, and I obviously can't corroborate.
Because they had a little child. Yeah, they had a little child, and the police placed the child on a register or something like that.
No, it's the question as to whether the child was placed on the register or still on the register. But I mean, I think people have heard. I've just got to say that I can't corroborate that, but I hear what you say, Ao, in relation to that. Ao, have you got any faith that things might change?
Well, it's one thing to have a plan, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Give us the most elaborate and beautiful looking plan. These people still have that mindset that President Dick, good riddance to her, and Stephen House, they instinctively defend their officers. And it's a cultural thing. And it's something that needs to be fought, that needs to be brought to an end. Because police officers know that they'll do it with impunity because they're not held to account. It's only in blatant cases that they're held to account. But
and obviously we're living in an age where people have phones, they have cameras, they have evidence. We've seen WhatsApps and things that have revealed what's happened. So some of this has been revealed because of technology in a way that it would have been covered up in years gone by. Thank you very much for calling in. Dave in Hertfordshire. Dave.
Hello there. Well, I'm in my late 60s now, but my younger days was my youth and early 20s was like the late 60s, early 70s, at which point the drug scene had come out, to the...
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road.
I fitted a profile.
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
I walked around in, hipster loons, I smoked marijuana, and I did other drugs, and along with my fellow hippies, if you want to call us that, which is a bit of a blanket term, the police were pigs bad, and when so we fitted a profile, and we were through being stopped and searched, and then we kick off and give them an ugly time, and day in, day out, the police have to face people like me, and developed a kind of an attitude towards us.
So you thought you were profiled?
Well, yeah, we were. They were told to look out for people that look like this, they'd seen smoking marijuana in the woods or, down the back of somewhere or another, and we were fitting a profile. And a lot of the time they put us up, yeah, sure, we had some marijuana in us, or if not, they'd crash a party, they'd bust a party and find those of us there. They were right. The profile led them to where they were going to put right or wrong, and we processed it and kicked off and gave us a pretty ugly time, and we were just white kids then. It's not. I don't think it's to do with that colour of person's skin. It's to do with the profile that you're given, and as a police officer, your experience of people that within that profile cause you to act. And now I'm retired. I watch a lot of daytime TV, and there's a lot of these police pursuit things, and most of the people they're dealing with, they're mostly out in the provinces.
But Dave, I just want to push back ever so slightly, because you were a young hippie at a time when hippies had a certain rap and police were challenging you. The evidence is that if you're young and black in London, you get stopped and searched 9 times more than your white counterpart. Now, black communities will also talk about profiling, but what's always difficult is of those 9 stops and searched. I mean, I did a focus group with some kids in Hackney a few years ago. They were aged between sort of 14 and 25. All of them had been stopped and searched by one. And many of them had never done anything wrong. They don't have criminal records. And of course, if you're stopped and searched over and over again and you've never done anything wrong, and to be fair, Dave, you talked about smoking marijuana, so in a sense it was illegal. You end up coming not to trust the police. That's the problem, Dave.
Well, I'm grown up now. I understand what they were trying to do and what they were trying to achieve. And when you're young and wild and with your peer group, you see them in a different way.
So you're more generous to the police now than you were back then?
Look, I understand as much as you do. There's an awful lot of police officers and there's an awful lot of black people. And if where I lived and the Democrats there was about a lot of white kids who wore the attire I did and did what I did, the studious ones that didn't touch anything but just had long hair and went to the college and wore glasses and went over swatting Chaucer every night, they'd be picked up and searched as well, and they wouldn't like it either. They didn't.
Well, you've heard Dave there. If you agree or disagree, call me on 03456.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
I'm sure there are a few people frowning and a little bit frustrated with some of what you said then. It's David Lammy here on LBC. The time now is 6:29. News with Tim Humphrey.
A source at number 10 has
Keep right to stay on M4.
meeting he had with a senior civil servant about her soon-to-be published report on COVID law-breaking parties. But Sue Gray's team said she...
Continue on M4 for 2 miles.
Prime Minister Labour have won the general election for the first time since 2007, but they don't yet have a majority, so Anthony Albanese may need support from smaller independent parties. 3 people have now been taken to hospital after spectator stands at a Trooping the Colour rehearsal in central London partially collapsed. The emergency services say 5 in total suffered injuries in Horseskulls Road at around 11 a.m. The weather cloud and breezy tonight with some rain and drizzle in the north and northwest, clear spells in the south and east where a few fog patches may form, a low of 8.
This is LBC.
So you're struggling with your mobile connection?
Yes, I've tried everything.
Have you tried walking in a circle, standing on a chair, shouting?
This is ridiculous.
It's the best I can do for you, I'm afraid.
Let me be your hero.
Fear not, Tesco Mobile have got you covered. Get network coverage across 99% of the UK so you can stay connected. This is Supermarket Mobile. Tesco Mobile, every little helps. 99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across the UK. See tescomobile.com/coverage-checker.
Hi, Nick Knowles here. These days we're all concerned with the rising price of energy and how to be more sustainable. But the team at Euronics have got some great solutions. Like, did you know you could save up to 38% more energy using eco programs on your washing machine? With brands like Beko, Blomberg and Hotpoint. And with over 600 Euronics stores nationwide, you can just pop in or give them a call. For great local service, just ask.
With Pension B, you can combine, contribute and withdraw online. We helped Andrew bring multiple workplace pensions together into one new online plan.
I chose Pension B because I was looking for a way to consolidate a large number of pensions. It was really easy to sign up. I had to enter my details. Pension B did the rest.
We're building a pension company you can believe in. Be pension confident. Join at pensionb.com. Capital at risk, authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Food's here.
Oh, great. Starving.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
Careful, Shaz, don't drop them.
Stop.
You next, they'll stack them up.
Stop.
That's it. Hide those pieces.
Stop! What's all this?
The pieces you ran for. Where's the rest of you?
What do you mean?
You said bring enough for 200 people.
Hungry. I said 2 hungry people.
Whoa.
Keep right to stay on M4.
Specsavers. Book online today.
Where do you want the garlic bread?
Welcome to everyone's favorite game show, the Motorway.
Continue on M4 for 4 miles.
Give you the best price for your car. Okay, Val, are you ready to sell?
Very ready.
Thousands of car dealers are waiting to bid.
£12,000, £12,200, £12,500.
You've sold your car. Motorway, the way to sell your car. Sell your car at motorway.co.uk.
56% of customers received a higher sale price than the agreed reserve price.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with David Lammy.
Returning to your calls on policing in a moment. In the week that the police will publish a plan that says they're going to be an anti-racist police force, but they're not prepared to admit to institutional racism. And you can call me on 0345 6060 I'd love to hear from you if you're a police officer out there. What do you make of policing in these times and accusations of institutional racism? You can call me on 0345 6060 You can text me on 84850, or you can tweet me at LBC. But other breaking news, Scott Morrison has been defeated as the Conservative Prime Minister and leader of Australia, and replaced by Anthony Albanese, who becomes the first Labour leader of Australia since 2007. Here is the incoming Prime Prime Minister Anthony Albanese speaking earlier.
Tonight, the Australian people have voted for change. I am humbled by this victory, and I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to serve as the 31st Prime Minister of Australia. My Labor team will work every day to bring Australians together, and I will lead a government worthy of the people of Australia. A government as courageous and hardworking and caring as the Australian people are themselves. Earlier tonight, Scott Morrison called me to congratulate myself and the Labor Party on our victory at the election. Scott very...
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
And I wish him well. It says a lot about our great country that the son of a single mum who was a disability pensioner, who grew up in public housing down the road in Camperdown, can stand before you tonight as Australia's Prime Minister.
That was Prime Minister Anthony Albanese winning and becoming Australia's Prime Minister a few moments ago. And Amy Ramikis is The Guardian's Australia's political reporter. She reports for us from Sydney.
It has taken floods, fire and a pandemic, but Australia has finally had its climate change election, kicking out the Conservative government, which has held power for the last 9 years, and installing a progressive government led by the Labor Party's Anthony Albanese. It is unclear at the moment whether Labor will be able to form government in its own right, with both the major parties suffering a loss of primary support. The story of this election in Australia has been the support for independent candidates who ran primarily on a More Action for Climate Change platform, along with more integrity in government, as well as the minor party rise. The Greens, Australia's most progressive political party, have increased their numbers in the House of Representatives for the first time in years, as well as the Senate. Australia looks to have a more progressive government than it has had in at least 2 decades, with Labor and the Greens looking to hold the majority in the Senate as well. It has been an extraordinary election campaign in Australia. It went for 6 weeks. It was marked by a lot of issues that had nothing to do...
In a quarter of a mile, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
...on climate change, integrity in politics, and also more to be done on the issue of women's safety.
Australia's elections, and back to your texts and calls.
Exit at junction 6.
Policing. Steve says in a text message, David, apologies, but stop making this one-sided about race all the time. You're not making this...
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the 3rd exit onto Tuns Lane, A355.
Simply reporting is on the front of The Guardian. There's a police report, not by me, it's by the National Council of Police Chiefs next week, in which they're going to commit the police force to being anti-racist, but they're not saying that there's institutional racism. So it's not about me making it about race. The police force is talking about race. That's why we're discussing it on the show. I mean, I honestly think, I wonder why you feel motivated to text in that way. Please, Steve, by the way, if you want to ring in and have a chat, I'm look forward to chatting to you. Steve says, you'll never get rid of institutional racism in the UK, especially when you have an institution called the Conservative Party that uses racism at general elections to win votes in small English towns. Bring back widespread stop and search is solely to please white people. Another one here, David, I've lived in Balham after leaving the Navy. Everything was fine until 2015 when Balham was gentrified. I then got stopped regularly. One night I was stopped by police who were ex-military. They told me it was what the politicians.
Exit the roundabout onto Tons Lane.
And another one here from Paul in Norfolk. As an ex-Londoner, it's always amazed me that the police in areas like Hackney, where I was from, had a police service that didn't reflect the ethnic diversity of people that they were policing. I feel that part of the problem is that both the police and Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities essentially dehumanise the other.
In a quarter of a mile, turn left towards Sippenham Lane.
Look like the people they're supposed to look after, which is what policing is, then they would really build bridges. How to do this is something I don't have any answer to. I guess as a politician, that's your job. Thank you very much. But what you'd heard there from Victor and Lisa earlier, that there had been progress, but it's suddenly stalled, basically, and it's not moving forward. Taking your calls on policing and racism and institutional racism or not institutional racism, call me on 0345 6060 973. I'd love to hear from you if you're a police officer. Love to get your view. Ahmed in Streatham, thank you so much.
Turn left towards Sippenham Lane.
Oh, hi David, how are you doing? You alright?
Very well, very well.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, especially with police.
Continue for 1.5 miles.
And I think that's actually broken down. And the biggest issue is what needs to happen is that police needs to try to. I think the issue is communication, and that in itself has been broken down between the ethnic minorities and the police, number one. Number two, within the force itself, if a police officer, whether it's a man or woman, sees a colleague doing something wrong, even if they want to do something about it, the system is not supportive in terms of bringing those bad behavior to the front. And even if they do, there is some sort of blue wall of silence, unfortunately. And
Ahmed, this point you're making about policing by consent is a very important point. It's basically this point that we sometimes forget in Britain. We don't routinely ask our police officers to carry guns. We're not like France next door. We're not like the United States. We haven't got a system that's basically policing by force. We've got a system of where the police come into our communities by consent. They're policing alongside the public, and therefore you've got to have the public on your side. It's why this issue of how Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities feel about policing is so significant, because it's hugely important if you're policing Bradford or you're policing Tottenham, or indeed if you're policing a small town where there's just a handful of families who are ethnic minorities, that everyone feels that the police are there alongside them with their consent. I think that's the issue that makes this so important and makes our country, it's the best bit of our policing model, so different to countries like the United States or France next door.
I just want to make one point, if that's okay.
Go on, yeah.
And another thing is really and truly, I think, look, I think it's all to do with, wording, as well as imaging is very important, and the media plays a significant role. Now, the way ethnic minorities are portrayed in the media, unfortunately, and wording that's used in the media, unfortunately, whether people like it or not, it has an effect on us, and we're human beings, and bias affects all of us, whether you're black, white, and Asian. So it's very important, especially when it comes to training, that it's actually addressed. That's very important.
Ahmed, the issue goes on and on. People have been talking about training for a very long time. Are you hopeful, cynical, or somewhere in the middle?
I work in the NHS. I am hopeful, but what I would say is that the system has to change. The system has to be configured in a way to ensure that those police officers, men and women, who want the profession to move forward, to be better, they need to be supported to ensure they're made better. And those who are bringing it down need to be kicked out. They have to be kicked out.
Ahmed, thank you so much for calling in. I'm very, very grateful. I've had a text message in here that says, in my humble opinion, there's a significant defensiveness towards the idea of systemic racism in the police service, to the point that there's a reluctance to use the term racism in pieces